I'm just so excited for these books, you know, like I can't help it. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. Big classic. Hi guys, it's Molly. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going through my January wrap up and February TBR. So I'm basically just going to be going through what I read in January and my thoughts and ratings on them, as well as what I hope to read in February. January was a bit of a slow start for me. I think just trying to get back into the groove of things with work and then also starting this channel kind of put me in a little bit of a reading slump because I was doing so much other things. So overall in January I read 3 books and I'm currently in the middle of my 4th, so once I've read that I will have also read 1,453 pages, which is honestly a big step up from the latter half of last year. Depending on my rating for this last book that I'm in the middle of, my average rating will either be 4 stars or 4.25 stars. And the genres I read were fantasy, mystery and a biography, with the majority, aka 2 books, being fantasy. So the first book I read in January was The Raven Boys by Maggie stiefvater, which was a reread and that I once again gave 5 stars. This book just makes me feel so much when I'm reading it, and I don't know if that's down to Maggie's writing style or the plots or the characters, but it makes me feel, you know, the emotions. And I really love how distinct each character is, even all the side characters. Like, she really does well with that aspect of writing. Her descriptions of the settings make you feel like you're right there with the characters, and I really love how the magic system, if you can even call it that, works. It's very tied to nature and it's just very like grounded. It's very intrinsic, you know, it's subtle. But yeah, a book I highly recommend. The next book I read was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Fawcett. This is the sequel to the first book, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I gave it 4 stars. This was an amazing sequel, and I still really love the style of academic writing that Fawcett uses. It really fits the tone and the context of the story. And while I would have liked to see more of the actual map being made, I still really loved the exploration of the fairy doors and the rich descriptions Heather Fawcett gives to describe the nature and the fairies themselves. I know some people don't like it, but I really do love the footnotes that Heather Fawcett has added to these books. It just gives so much more context to what Emily is writing about, and then it also gives so much depth and lore to the world that she inhabits. Like, it makes it feel like such a real world and a subject of actual research, because they have all these different texts. The only reason I didn't give this book 5 stars was because some parts of the ending felt a bit anticlimactic, while others felt tense and sort of earned. I'm not going to say which parts, I'll let you read it, but other than that, a great book and I can't wait for the next one. Then I read Inspector Imanishi Investigates by Seicho Matsumoto. This is a mystery set in 1960 Japan and I gave it 4 stars. This was a solid mystery novel. I really liked the way the deaths and revelations unfolded throughout, and that Imanishi was an actual discerning detective and he put effort into finding clues, although there were a few too many clues that I thought were too coincidental to be believable at times, but it is what it is. I enjoyed the characterization of the main and side characters. They felt like real people and they were fleshed out no matter how little they popped up in the story. And this is definitely true for Imanishi and the murderer. They're both very clever and the murderer is like really good at covering his tracks. Like, he's kind of 5 steps ahead of the police at the beginning of the book. But Seicho Matsumoto does a really good job of introducing a red herring that is very, very believable, and I think for most of the book I thought they were the murderer. Like, I didn't really realise it was a red herring until about 80% through the book, and it wasn't too jarring to find out that the real murderer were who they were. Like, looking back throughout the book you kind of be like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So while it was a bit more subtle, it was definitely a twist I wasn't really expecting. Like, I didn't expect the murderer to be that person. I also really like that you're not told some of the discoveries Imanishi has or some of the evidence he finds straight away. Like, they give you time to figure out. And while it's not a mind-blowing novel, you know, it's written in the 60s and you can kind of tell that, it was definitely an enjoyable and intricate story. Now, the book I'm still in the middle of is Down the Drain by Julia Fox. This is her very interesting biography depicting her childhood and subsequent development into adulthood. I'm about 30% in and I can honestly say it's one of the most interesting biographies I've ever read so far. So I anticipate giving this book 4 stars once I'm done today, but you never know, I might end up hating it. Now we're going to go through my TBR for February, and I'm afraid it's quite ambitious for the shortest month of the year. To start, we've got By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. I don't know if I'm saying this right. This is a chonker, a very big chonker. This is a dual point of view novel following 2 female playwrights from 2 different time periods, Elizabethan London and modern day Manhattan. It sounds really interesting. I think it touches on being a woman in the arts and how some things have advanced, but some things just intrinsically stay the same. And I'm excited to get into a book that's not really my go-to genre. You know, I think this is more like historical fiction because of the Elizabethan London point of view, but then it's also kind of contemporary, like just general fiction, and that's not kind of what I lean towards, but I'm excited to get into it. Next, I'm going to read Swordcatcher by Cassandra, Clare, an adult fantasy following two outcasts, a prince's body double and a physician, as they become involved in the criminal underworld after a failed assassination. I would assume on the prince that one of them's a body double for. I am really, really excited for this. 1, it's fantasy. 2, it's got assassinations in it, and 3, it's by Cassandra Clare, an author I used to love when I was younger. I inhaled The Mortal Instruments, but I never really read any of her other stuff, and I think this is her first foray into adult fantasy, so I'm really, really excited to see what she's done with it. And just look at that cover. Like, that cover is gorgeous. And it also helps that some of my favourite authors have given it really good reviews. Next, I'm going to read Chlorine by Jade, which is about a swimmer struggling with adolescence, from what I can surmise from the blurb. It's quite vague, and it touches on longing, obsession, and becoming, you know, sort of that coming of age kind of story. Again, another beautiful cover, and I'm quite interested in this because I think there's like mermaids in it. I don't know if it's like fancy, speculative, or if it's just the mermaid as a metaphor. Like, I'm kind of unsure about that. Like, it's kind of vague. I haven't really read any reviews because I don't want spoilers and I don't want to be influenced by them, but I'm just kind of confused about those mermaid elements, but I'm interested to see. And the last line of the blurb is, no matter how much blood she has to spill. So is this gonna get gory? Is it gonna be like Shape of Water-esque? I hope it is. But yeah, that's going to be another read in February. Next, I'm going to read The Dream Thieves by Maggie, stiefvater, the sequel to The Raven Boys that I read this month. This book depicts the aftermath of the first book, but it mainly focuses on Ronan Lynch and his struggles, with magic being more prominent than ever after what happened at the end of the first book, and friendships being tested because of Ronan's decisions in this book. While I've read the first book in the series multiple times, because I haven't had the physical copies of the rest of the series, I've only read them once before. So while I know the general plot and what happens, I've really forgotten the little details that make up the stories. So I'm really, really excited to reread this again and discover my love for it again. I feel like I'm saying excited a lot. Is that weird? I don't know. I'm just so excited for these books, you know, like I can't help it. Oh, but we're coming on to a book that I may not be so excited about. The next book I want to read is a bit hopeful, but nevertheless, I want to read The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Is that how I say it? Dumas? I don't know. Probably completely butchering it, sorry. This is a big classic depicting the wrongful imprisonment of Edmond Dante, or Dantes, I don't know, and his quest for revenge on the people that put him in prison, essentially. I started reading this at the end of 2023 through to the start of 2024. I read 111 pages of it, but I never got back round to it, so I'm hoping to read it again this month. Don't know why I chose the shortest month of the year. It's gonna be a challenge, but a challenge I'm willing to accept. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I haven't read a classic this year yet, and I usually do read at least once a month. So I think this is just going to make up for January and February together. Next, I'm going to read The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, the second book in the Thursday Murder Club series. This one follows the same four characters as they attempt to identify a ruthless killer and find some stolen diamonds at the behest of one of Elizabeth's old colleagues. Now, I read the first book in 2023 and I loved it. I love the idea of four old people just sitting around talking about old cases, trying to crack them, and somehow getting involved in an actual investigation into an actual murder that happens where they live. Like, it's so simple, yet it's done so well, and I've never really read anything like it. And I'm so excited for the movie, so I am also excited to get back into this book. Excited. Why do I just keep saying excited? Do I not know another word for excited? I should, but I don't. I should probably just put "I'm so excited" playing on in the background for this whole video. Just sums it up, doesn't it? Okay, next I'm going to read The Waves by Virginia Woolf, that depicts the lives of 6 children and their experiences with friendship, love and grief following the death of their mutual friend Percival. I first read Virginia Woolf last year. I read A Room of One's Own. That was sort of a stream of consciousness essay she did, and I really enjoyed her viewpoint. So I wanted to get into her fiction novels, and I'm starting with The Waves because it's the only one I actually already had on my shelves. And as you know, I'm trying to get through my physical TBR first. And I really love the designs of these little vintage classics. I think if I like this book and I eventually want to get more of her fiction books, I'm going to get these editions. The next 3 books I'm going to talk about are Extreme Hopefuls and Only If I Manage to Finish the TBR I've talked about already. So first we have Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett, which is the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series. I have no idea what it's about and I don't want to read the blurb in case there's any spoilers in it, but I can't wait, and I'm currently first on my library's reservation list, you know, the perks of being a librarian. I'm also going to wait until the paperback comes out because I don't want to have 2 paperbacks, 1 hardback. It just looks weird. I'm going to wait for the paperback to come out before I buy it for myself. The second book we have is Cool as the Light by Sophie Clark. This is an enemies to lovers fantasy that I had the opportunity to read on NetGalley a while ago, but I want to read it again now that it's published, like get a physical copy and read it. I don't currently have it because it's still technically January. I'm going to wait till February to go to the shop and buy a couple books. And the 3rd book we have is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. Another big chonker. This is the 3rd book in the Farseer trilogy and it follows Fitz in the wake of the King's death, Verity's presumed death, and his own faked death. And we see him set out for the north of the kingdom that Regal abandoned to raiders as he plots out his assassination revenge. I am excited to see Regal get his comeuppance, you know, I was a bitch. But I'm also scared for what might happen to Fitz and the Fool. Like, I love those 2. And Björk, like, these are my boys. Like, I need them to be safe and I need them to find love. I do not ship Fitz and Mollie. Let's just get that straight. I do not ship Fitz and Mollie. They just seem like a kind of forced relationship. They would have been better as friends. I ship Fitz and the Fool. They are the only ship that makes sense to me in this series, and I know there's more books and I know there's more content and I need to get there. But even just reading the first 2 books, I know they're meant to be together and I know they're not, and it's really annoying. But yeah, if I don't read this in February, I'm going to read it in March because I don't think I have a lot planned that month. So any books I don't read in February, I'm going to shift. So there we have it, my January wrap up and February TBR. I probably won't end up reading all the books I want to get to, but a girl can dream. You know, I'm actually planning a 24-hour readathon in February, so I'm hoping that can, you know, knock out a few very quickly. I hope you enjoyed listening to my thoughts in this video, and if you made it this far, comment the raven emoji for the Raven Boys, which was my favourite book this month. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Sweet dreams!